Hello, how are you doing? I'm Dr. Jocelyn, a physician with over 15 years of experience helping men take better care of their intimate health, especially after age 60. And today I need to share something very serious with you. A few weeks ago, I saw a 67-year-old gentleman in my office here in Sao Paulo. Let's call him Mr. Roberto. He came in worried about high blood pressure, constant fatigue, and prostate problems. During our consultation, when we spoke more privately, he confessed something that completely changed the course of his diagnosis. Mr. Roberto had a habit he thought was harmless, something he did in his bathroom at home, always at the same time, always the same way. And he had no idea that this habit was damaging his heart, his prostate, and even his ability to feel pleasure. You know what I discovered? That Mr. Roberto was committing not one, but 5 of the 7 main mistakes that men over 60 make during masturbation. And before you think I'm going to talk about moralism or nonsense, let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with masturbation. In fact, it's part of a healthy sex life at any age. The problem isn't the act itself, but how you're doing it. I've treated hundreds of men in the same situation. Men who unknowingly were creating cardiovascular problems, damaging their sensitivity, overloading their prostate, all because of seemingly innocent habits. And today, I'm going to reveal to you the 7 most dangerous mistakes you might be making right now. Why am I talking about this? Because I'm tired of seeing wonderful men, family men, grandfathers, successful professionals, suffering in silence with problems that could be prevented. Because sexual health after 60 isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And because no one else is going to tell you this honestly. So grab your coffee, sit comfortably, and let's talk about something that could literally save your sex life and your overall health. Let's go. The first thing you need to understand is that after age 60, the male body goes through profound changes. Blood circulation isn't the same as when you were 30 or 40. Testosterone naturally begins to decline. The prostate enlarges. All of this is normal, expected. But here's the problem. If you keep doing the same things you did 20 years ago without adapting anything, you're asking for trouble. I'm going to tell you something I always tell my patients in the office. Imagine your body as a car. A brand new car can easily handle a trip from Sao Paulo to Rio without stopping, accelerating hard, no problem at all. But a car with 30 years of use, you need to make stops, use better fuel, check the oil, take care of the suspension. It's the same with your body, folks. And ignoring this is a recipe for disaster. Now, let's get to the 7 most dangerous mistakes. Mistake number 1, using the wrong pressure. You know what Mr. Roberto confessed to me? That over the years, he needed to squeeze harder and harder to feel pleasure. Doctor, it seems like I've lost sensitivity, he told me. And you know why? Because he was literally training his body to only respond to extreme stimuli. Think about it. When you squeeze too hard, you're compressing blood vessels, damaging local circulation, and over time, damaging nerve endings. It's as if you're slowly killing your body's ability to feel pleasure naturally. After 60, nerves are already naturally less sensitive. If you also use excessive force, you're digging your own grave in terms of pleasure. And there's something else many men don't know. This excessive pressure can lead to what we call death grip syndrome. It's not literal death, of course, but it's the death of your ability to respond to gentle, delicate touch, whether from your own hand or from your partner. Have you ever thought about this? That maybe the difficulty in feeling pleasure with your wife isn't her fault or yours, but rather this habit you created without realizing it. I had a patient, let's call him Mr. Carlos, 64 years old, married for 35 years. He came to me desperate because he could no longer have relations with his wife. Doctor, I just don't feel anything, he told me. After talking extensively, I discovered he was using a male masturbator, you know, those devices, and using it with absurd pressure. His body simply forgot what the natural touch of a vagina felt like. It took months of re-education for him to feel pleasure normally again. Mistake number 2, doing it in the bathroom. I know what you're thinking. Dr. Jocelyn, what's the problem? It's the most private place in the house. Yes, I understand. But let me explain what's happening to your body when you do this. First, the position. Most men do it sitting on the toilet, right? In that position, you're completely compressing the pelvic region. The blood vessels that supply the penis, the prostate, the entire area are under pressure. After 60, your circulation is already slower. Naturally, you add this compression and you're creating a serious problem. Second, the rush. In the bathroom, nobody wants to take too long, right? So you speed up, get tense, breathe poorly. Your heart races, your pressure rises, and you don't even notice. I've seen cases of men who had cardiac arrhythmia, even signs of heart attack, all because they were straining too much in a closed environment without adequate ventilation. Third, the psychological association. When you always do it in the same place, the brain creates an association. After a while, you can only feel pleasure there. This severely limits your sex life. And if you want to have an intimate moment with your partner in bed, the brain doesn't respond the same way. Mistake number 3, rushing the process. This one is the champion of problems. Did you know that most men over 60 that I see take less than 3 minutes from start to finish? 3 minutes? Folks, that's a disaster. The male body needs time, especially after 60, for the entire cardiovascular system to prepare properly. When you rush, the heart needs to pump blood very quickly. Blood pressure rises abruptly, and you put enormous strain on the system. It's like doing a 100-meter sprint without warming up. You might manage it, but you'll pay the price later. Besides, rushing the process means you're focused only on the end result, the orgasm, and you lose the entire journey, all the pleasure along the way. Healthy masturbation, especially at this age, should be a moment of connection with your own body, of exploration, of relaxation, not a race against time. I usually advise my patients, dedicate at least 10 to 15 minutes. Start slowly, explore different types of touch, breathe deeply, and let the body respond naturally. You'll see that the pleasure is much more intense, the orgasm more satisfying, and you avoid overloading the heart. Mistake number 4, not using adequate lubrication. Look, this is basic, but you can't imagine how many men ignore it. After 60, the skin becomes thinner, more sensitive, more prone to micro-injuries. If you keep rubbing without lubrication, you're creating small fissures in the skin that can become inflamed, infected, and cause serious problems. And I'm not talking about using just anything. No soap, no shampoo, no toothpaste. For God's sake, these substances can severely irritate the mucosa. Use a water-based lubricant specifically for this purpose. You can find it at any pharmacy, it's not expensive, and it will make a huge difference. I had a patient, Mr. Jose, 62 years old, who came in with his penis completely irritated, red, burning. He was ashamed to tell me, but when I insisted, he confessed he'd been using soap for years. Folks, the man was literally hurting himself. After he started using proper lubricant, everything was resolved in 2 weeks. Mistake number 5, depending exclusively on pornography. Look, I'm not going to get into the moral merits of watching pornography or not. Everyone knows their own life. But from a medical standpoint, I need to warn you about a serious problem: dopamine. When you watch pornography, especially the heavier, more intense kind, the brain releases an enormous amount of dopamine. It's the pleasure hormone, the reward hormone. The problem is that the brain gets used to that level of stimulation. After a while, the brain only responds to that type of extreme visual stimulus. You literally become addicted. And then what happens? You can no longer feel aroused by your wife. You can't get an erection without watching pornography. You completely lose the ability to be excited by natural, real stimuli. I've treated dozens of men in this situation, and look, recovery isn't easy. There's a recent study done right here in Brazil that showed men over 60 who consume pornography daily are 3 times more likely to develop erectile dysfunction compared to those who don't consume it or consume it sporadically. 3 times. That's a lot. If you identify with this, my recommendation is try a detox. Spend at least 30 days without watching any pornography. The first few days will be difficult. Your brain will complain. But then you'll notice your sensitivity returns. You'll become aroused by simple, natural, real things again. And look, another important thing about pornography, it creates unrealistic expectations. Those bodies, those performances, that duration, none of it is real. They're actors with preparation, editing, Viagra, everything. When you compare your real life to that, you create enormous frustration, anxiety that only harms your sexual health. Mistake number 6, and this one is controversial: abusing very intense sex toys. I know some of you use male masturbators, those devices with vibration, suction, automated movement. And look, there's no problem using them once in a while. The problem is when you use them always, every day, and set them to maximum intensity. You know what happens? Same thing as excessive manual pressure, only worse. These devices create such intense, such artificial stimulation that the brain and body get used to only that. Later, when you try to have real sexual relations with your partner, you simply can't feel anything. The vagina doesn't vibrate, doesn't have suction, doesn't have all that pressure. And then you think the problem is with you or her, when actually the problem is that you've desensitized your body. I had a striking case. Mr. Marcos, 66 years old, came to me desperate. He had bought a top-of-the-line masturbator, one of those expensive ones, and used it every day. After 6 months, he realized he could no longer have relations with his wife. He simply felt no pleasure. He was devastated. The marriage was in crisis. It took 4 months without using the device, doing sensitization exercises to recover natural sensitivity. If you use these devices, my recommendation: limit use to a maximum of twice a week and never use maximum power. Always start on the lowest setting and go slowly. Your body needs to remain responsive to natural stimuli. Mistake number 7, not balancing with real intimacy. This one is fundamental and many men completely ignore it. Look, masturbation is healthy, it's normal, it's part of sexuality, but it can't replace real, intimate connection with another person. I see many men who masturbate every day, sometimes even twice a day, but go weeks without intimacy with their wives. Then when the wife complains, he says he doesn't feel like it, that he's tired, that he has erectile problems. Lie. The problem is that you're spending all your sexual energy alone. After 60, sexual recovery takes longer. If you had an orgasm this morning in the bathroom, you can be sure that tonight, when your wife wants to, you won't be able to respond the same way. It's physiological. You can't trick the body. And there's another important aspect, the emotional one. Sex with another person involves connection, exchange, intimacy, communication. It's completely different from the solitary act. When you always prioritize masturbation, you're losing something precious, which is this human connection. I had a patient, the wife of a 65-year-old gentleman, who came to me in tears. She discovered her husband was masturbating secretly every day, but hadn't had sex with her in 2 months. She felt rejected, ugly, undesired. When I spoke with him, I realized he had created an addictive routine where masturbation was easier, faster, without needing to worry about performance, about satisfying his partner. But this was destroying his marriage. The guidance I gave was, establish a priority. If you're in a relationship, intimacy with your partner should come first. Masturbation is a complement, not a replacement. And look, this transformed their relationship. He started reserving his sexual energy for moments together, and when he really needed to, then yes, he would masturbate. The marriage improved, her self-esteem returned, and he realized that shared pleasure is much greater. Now, before I give you final guidance, I need to say something important. None of these mistakes come from ignorance or stupidity. They happen because nobody taught you to do it differently. Nobody told you about body changes after 60. Nobody prepared you to adapt your sex life to this new phase. And you know what? It's not your fault. Society has created an enormous taboo around sexuality in older age. People think that after 60, you no longer have a sex life, no longer have desire, no longer need guidance. But that's an absurd lie. Sexuality has no age. Desire has no age. Pleasure has no age. What changes is the form, the frequency, the intensity. And you need to understand this to live well, with health, with quality of life. So what can you do now, today? First, have awareness. Are you committing any of these 7 mistakes? Be honest with yourself. You don't need to feel ashamed. You don't need to blame yourself. Just acknowledge it. Second, make small changes. You don't need to change everything at once. Start with one thing. Use adequate lubricant, or change the location, or decrease pornography frequency. One step at a time. Third, talk to your partner. If you have one, open up. Be honest. She'll prefer a frank conversation 1,000 times over living in uncertainty, thinking the problem is with her. Fourth, seek professional help if necessary. If you realize you can't change alone, that you're addicted to pornography, or that you have more serious sexual health problems, see a urologist or sex therapist. There's no shame in that. And look, one last thing I want to make very clear. Your body still works. Your desire still exists. Your capacity to feel pleasure is there. You just need to learn to respect the natural changes of age and adapt your habits. I've seen men at 70, 75, even 80 years old completely recover their sex life after making these changes. Men who thought everything was lost, that it was just age, that there was no solution. And look, it's not true. There is a solution. Your body deserves respect, deserves care, deserves attention. Replace shame with curiosity, replace fear with knowledge, replace haste with patience, and you'll see that sex life after 60 can be as good or even better than it was before. If this video helped you in any way, if you recognized any of these mistakes, leave a like so I know this type of content is important to you. And comment below, without shame, which of these 7 mistakes you've already made. You're not alone. There are thousands of men in the same situation. And if you have a friend, brother, or father who could benefit from this information, share this video with him. Sometimes we need a little push to start taking better care of our health. I'm Dr. Jocelyn. I'll be here always bringing quality information, without taboos, without judgment, to help you live better. A kiss to your heart, and see you in the next video.